Alright y'all, it has been a long time since I've worn a black lip, so this is a little like out there for me. I don't know, I've just been very kind of neutral nude with my lipsticks recently and in this past year. So putting on a black lip today, I was just kind of like, wow, Katie. But hey, I want to do it at least once during the winter, and I feel like this video is the appropriate one to do it because we're talking about winter palettes. But before I get ahead of myself, hello and welcome if you're new around here. My name is Katie Marie. I don't always wear black lipstick, so if it freaks you out, I'm sorry, and just stay tuned for a future video because I probably won't wear one maybe till next year. I don't know. Maybe I'll do another one this month before the month is over. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. And if you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for clicking on another one of my videos. Today, we're going to be diving into my top 10 palettes for winter. Now, I did this last year, and I'll go ahead and leave the video linked up here. I did a collaboration. It was a collab video with Britt Clark. Such great memories. That was such a fun palette. And I know I'm wearing the Shroud Cosmetics It's Freaking Bats palettes in that video because it just, I tell you, anytime I see that palette, I always know where it comes from. If you missed my video on unique palette and color stories, you can check it out up here because I talk about how I can always spot the palette anytime someone's wearing it. But anyway, we're going off on too many rabbit trails. Let me bring it back and focus on the matter at hand. My top 10 palettes, my top 10 winter palette recommendations. And just like I did with my fall palettes, I'm going to go to last year's video and I went through all of the palettes I mentioned, and then any ones that I still kind of hold true to of like, oh yeah, that's still a really great palette. Nothing else, you know, has trumped it from this year. I'm going to share with you those first and show you guys whichever palettes made it an extra year, and you know, you can watch the whole video if you want to see the palettes that either I decluttered or I just don't think are as, you know, winter or as top 10. I mean, they might still be wintry palettes, but I just feel like I found better when it comes to my top 10. And then after we share the old ones, we'll go into my new ones that I discovered through this past year. And I feel like I've discovered a lot of really fun winter themed palettes, at least in my opinion, with the type of winter palettes I like, which I should probably say up front. For me, a winter palette is something that's very deep because I feel like winter just gives it all the deep colors. So today, my eye look, I just feel like it's very deep toned, very cool toned also is something I like, very rich tones, and also Christmassy. So anytime there's like a very heavy emphasis on green and red in a palette, I'm just like, oh, Christmas and winter, therefore it's a winter palette. So yeah, let's go ahead and dive in. I do have a couple palettes that are still, in my opinion, a top 10 when it comes to winter palettes in my collection. Okay, so as I said, I'm going to share last year's. One of the ones I mentioned was the Magic Mini by Juvia's Place. This palette I feel like is still such a great option if you like really rich tones, if you like a lot of depth in your looks, especially the top two rows I feel like is where it's strongest for me when it comes to winter palettes, just because there's so much richness in the shadows here. You got the silvers that just pop, these really like Christmas green, the greenish tones, but even down here when you mix and match them together, I just feel like the colors are so very beautiful, so very stunning. And like I said, for me, you know, with this palette specifically, it's the richness and the kind of blue purpleness of these tones that really make me think of winter. So I saw this palette in last year's video and I was like, oh yeah, that's still a really great palette. I really do love it. I haven't used it in forever, but I remember the looks that I was getting out of it. I was just so floored, so in awe of how gorgeous it was. So I definitely wanted to mention it. If you are new or never have tried Juvia's Place, their mattes are very pigmented. They don't take a whole lot of work to build up. You know, you kind of, especially with the deeper tones, I would say go in carefully. And their shimmers are very metallic, though this is an older formula, so if I remember right, it's more of just a really nice shimmer, not quite as metallic and like buttery soft and I don't even know, sparkly as I feel like Juvia's Place shimmers are today, but still a really nice formula. They work really well, so still a great palette. And then following that up, another palette I mentioned last year was the DJ's Unique Boutique The Reasons palette. She brought this out again this year, so if you're at all interested in this palette, definitely go over to her website sooner rather than later and check it out, because I don't know how long she's going to be holding on to it. I think she's just going to have it run until it sells out and then maybe be done with it. I don't think she's making it permanent. Anyway, getting back to the matter at hand, this palette is just such a fun color story with the blues and the greens. I love it, and the icy tones in it. You get a lot of depth down here, and just the looks that you get are absolutely gorgeous. This is such a fun, like bright blue-green color story and a little pop of something interesting out there. Overall, I had a great time with it. I really did enjoy this palette, and in my opinion, it's just very much a different take on Christmas. It's very much a Christmas theme, but I just feel like it was very fun and interesting and different from what you would think of a Christmas palette, so I love that about it. And I also love how the artwork on the outside matches the color story on the inside. I love it when they do that, so definitely had to keep this one around for top 10 when it comes to winter palettes. Okay, this is kind of funny. So the last one that I'm going to keep from last year is actually one that I mentioned last year, obviously, but I didn't try it till this year. So technically I was going to mention it because I tried it this year and I thought it qualified as a winter palette. But anyway, it is the Ruby May Peppermint Mocha palette. I didn't try this one, or I didn't review it until the new year, so hence why it was in my current 2021 pile. And then I saw I had mentioned it last year and I was like, ah, like yeah, I was gonna mention this one. Which, by the way, I didn't look into my new to try pile, kind of like I did last year with this one. I figured I'll leave those alone since I haven't tried them yet, and that way I can share them at the end of 2022 after I try them. I can mention them in winter favorites. I hope that makes sense. But anyway, let's get back to this. Of course, this is a winter palette in my opinion. It's got the richness to it that I like. It's got such saturated colors, like all of these colors in here. There's no like mid-tone color in here. Even this one, you would think, oh, this is a nice transition shade. No, it's very intensely pigmented. And if you do want to use it as a transition shade, which of course you can use any of these, you know, to transition out, it just takes a little bit more work to blend. You really have to go in with a light hand and be careful. But then also, you know, just color story wise, so Christmassy, so fun. I remember last year I wore this for my like Christmas day, or it was Christmas Eve that we went over to my parents. Maybe I'll do the same thing this year because I'm going over to my parents again. But this green is so beautiful. This silver is so beautiful. I remember having the most amazing time with this palette. Like, look how beautiful, so stunning. The shimmer formula is so beautiful, so nice and sparkly and shiny. And then the mattes are very pigmented. And the only kind of struggle for me with the mattes is because they're so saturated, I did have to be careful and think through my look to make sure I was using the mattes correctly so that the look could turn out well. Does that even make sense? But you know what I mean? There's only 3 mattes, so you kind of have to think about like, okay, where am I putting the mattes? And they're so deep and saturated for me and my skin tone at least. I couldn't really use them as, like I said, they're not really transition shades for me. They're all kind of dark and just use it to blend outward and upward or into my crease, if that makes sense. But overall, I love the color story. I was very happy with the formula. Okay, so now that we've talked about those, we're going to transition over to 2021 palettes that I tried that just scream winter to me. And the first one is the one that's on my eyes and that screams winter to me the loudest. And it is the Odens Giant Wolves palette that Annette from Annette's Makeup Corner collaborated with Odens on. Tell me this isn't a winter palette. Like, it's a winter grunge palette and I absolutely love it. Today, when I was sitting down to do my eye look, I was like, okay, I want to play with the multi-chrome and I want to have a very grunge winter look. And I feel like I got it so very well. It's so very fun. This multi-chrome is absolutely stunning. I don't think it's going to do it justice on camera, but I shared a video on my Instagram, a little clip of me like moving from shade to sunlight, just so you could see the shift from like green to pink to, oh, it's just gorgeous. Absolutely beautiful. And this, I mean, as you can see from the color story, I just feel like this is the strongest argument for like a winter palette in my whole collection, just because everything about it, I'm just like, yeah, that's absolutely winter vibes. You got the silver in there, you got the blue in there, you got the deep tones in there, you got some grunge for the grunge lover in me, and you have purple. I feel like purple is a deep purple is another color that I associate with winter. So overall, I had to mention this one. And then formula wise, you guys know I always talk about it. I was a huge fan of all 3 palettes. All 3 palettes had an amazing formula, so easy to work with, so nicely pigmented, and the shimmers were absolutely blending. The multi-chrome's absolutely beautiful. So yes, obviously love this palette, love the formula, and had to be in my top 10 winter palettes. I should say I'm not ranking these from like 10 all the way up to 1. I'm just kind of sharing top 10 in any order. But if I had to rank top 10, 10 to 1, I think this would be number 1. Another palette that I tried from this past year that definitely made me think of the winter is the Midas Cosmetics and Drench Cosmetics Genesis palette. This palette has a lot of richness to it, again, which is what I associate with winter when it comes to really rich tones and then really cool tones, especially down here with the silvers and the blues and these greens down here. Whenever I did looks with those combined with like the black or just smoking out the outer corner a lot, it really made me think of winter, especially with this red kind of mixing it into the black. You just got a lot of depth with a little like purple hint to it, or like a red purple hint to it. It was always so beautiful. So this is a color story. It's like a half neutral, half, you know, colorful winter or half winter themed palette in my opinion. And the formula of Midas Cosmetics, especially this palette, was absolutely fantastic. The mattes are so saturated and easy to work with. They're very beautiful on the eyes, very beautiful in eye looks. And the shimmers, I remember them being really nice. Nothing like super sparkly or metallic, but they're nice and shiny shimmers, which is what I like in a shimmer. So they were great to work with. And then this one, this shade is just so beautiful as well. This one has a lot of sparkle to it, while the others are more just a simple shimmer. This has a ton of sparkle. So if you like a really dark smoky eye but want it to be sparkly on the lid, that would be the shade to use. Okay, this one I struggled back and forth for so long whether I should include it in today's video, because I'm like, yes, it's wintry, but there are some pops in there that don't really scream winter, but I'm gonna include it. This is the Natasha Denona Circo Loco palette. And the big reason I'm putting it in here is because there's so many tones in this palette that really, especially when I was using those together in looks, I got very wintry vibes from the looks that I got. Specifically like the silver, the purples down here, these colored greens up here, this red over here, this rich blue. There are gorgeous colors, very saturated and beautiful beautiful and deep colors for winter looks, in my opinion. Yes, it's a little bit of like, you know, not really super wintry with the pops of pastel over here and then the pops of orange, but as a whole, I feel like the palette together, especially the type of looks that you would get if you kind of focus more on the winter side, will give you a lot of winter options. So that's why I wanted to include it, because the majority did, in my opinion, lean on the wintry side. Of course, the mattes with Natasha Denona are super beautiful and the shimmers are gorgeous as well. I had a great time with it. I wasn't the biggest fan of her, I think it's like a cream formula. It's like matte, but it feels almost like a Super Shock eyeshadow, if that makes sense. Wasn't the biggest fan of it. They work fine though, but it's just a different texture, different formula than I was used to. Overall, like color story wise, it just makes me think of winter, especially this green, this purple, this one as well, Aerialist, this taupey silver, so very beautiful, or this bright green. I don't know, I just look at those and I'm like, yeah, it totally makes me think of winter. So that's why I'm including it in this top 10 winter palettes. Okay, I feel like this one's obvious because you'll see in a minute, but this is Yvette's Beauty Chill Out palette. This palette came out in the winter. And I mean, look at this palette. It's like a heavily blue silver palette. And the names, Holly Jolly, Icy, Sleigh Rides, Last Christmas, 'Tis the Season, Naughty or Nice, Holiday Blues, Santa Baby, Baby It's Cold, Wonderland, Mistletoe, and Secret Santa. Of course it's a winter palette, and I remember having a really nice time with this. It's heavy on the glitters, so that is a little bit of a drawback for me, but if you're someone who likes pressed glitters, I mean, this is a really fun palette to have. I don't remember like hating the glitters. I tried, I think, 1 or 2 of them, and they were pretty good. This one has pretty big chunks in it. I don't even know if it's available anymore, so I don't really need to review it for you guys. But anyway, focusing on the pressed mattes and shimmers and whatnot, just the ordinary shadows, I had a great time with them. They were a lot of fun to work with. I got really icy blue looks, and it was just overall a lot of fun, but I had to include this one because it was just such a fun winter palette, very heavy on the icy blues, and it's a fun palette to have. I kind of want to dip back into it. I know I'm saying this, but I kind of want to use the pressed glitter here, Baby It's Cold, because it's like holographic silver. It looks very pretty. That would make a very pretty look all over the lid. But anyway, getting off on a rabbit trail, let's come on back. That is why I'm including this as a winter palette, because it's just so winter themed. This palette is one that I almost didn't think of right away, but when I opened it to look at it, I was like, oh yeah, that really does make me think of winter. This is Terramoons Cosmetics El Barrio palette. And this palette right here, I told you guys anytime red and green is in a palette, I really start thinking of like Christmas. And then I love the icy blues and the deep blues when it comes to winter palettes. So obviously I had to put this one in here because I felt like it was so appropriate. Formula wise, Terramoons Cosmetics mattes are insanely pigmented. I did a look on my channel. I'll try to link any video that I have with these palettes down below in the description box, but I remember them just being so pigmented. I was able to get really creative with this palette just because the color story is so unique and fun and different. And the shimmers, I do remember the shimmers being amazing. Like, oh, so beautiful. My fingers are so dirty. I'm so sorry, but I just can't help but touch them when I'm looking at the beautiful eyeshadows. I gotta show you guys how beautiful it is. So anyway, that's why I included it as one of my top 10 for winter palettes. I just feel like it gave me a lot of really fun, Christmassy, very wintry vibes whenever I use this palette. And last up is going to be the LA Girl MainStage palette, the Desert Dream MainStage palette. This palette, again, so much fun. I'm gonna hold it this way because it has a huge mirror, but it's such a fun palette and gives you those icy colors, but still a whole lot of depth to really deepen it out and get very wintry looks. I enjoyed this palette so very much. I used it in January or February, so it's kind of wintry and cold, and I absolutely loved it. And even though there's a lot of lighter tones up here that could be, if you just focus on them, very springy, bringing in the depth of the top really does make it very wintry. So it's almost like a split down the middle between like, this is spring and this is very winter vibes. So focusing on the more wintry side, and you guys know I love the deep shadows to really deepen out a look. I've created so many looks with this palette that are just so cool tone, so icy, so beautiful that it just makes me think of winter. These colors down here are also very icy and beautiful. Their shimmers are super, super intense. They're very soft, so you have to be careful, but they're not flaky, if you know what I mean. Like some eyeshadows are so flaky, they almost just like, you know, flake all over when you touch them, flake all over when you put them on. No, these are just such a soft shadow that they pick up very easy and are very softly pressed. And then the mattes are absolutely amazing. Like, ugh, so intense, like that I barely touched into the pan and so much comes off, so much saturation. Blending them and working with them was always a dream, and yeah, it's just such a great palette. And LA Girl, I say this every time I mention this palette, but it's so affordable and it's easy to get if you're at Ulta. And yeah, it's just a fantastic, fantastic palette. I absolutely love it and definitely makes me think of winter. Hi, hello there. Yes, this is me. This is Editing Katie. I was actually sitting down, kids are napping. I'm finishing up the winter favorites video when I realized, Katie, you only talked about 9 palettes. Why did you only have 9 palettes in this video? And I went back over and realized that I had misplaced this one because I had set it aside to reuse again, and I totally forgot to grab it over. and feature in the video. So the video I recorded with that beautiful, very grungy, winter-themed makeup look only had 9 palettes, and I'm going on and on about 10 palettes, and I do have a 10th one. So hence why Editing Katie is hopping on camera real quick to go ahead and fill the void that previous Katie had left in the video and giving you the 10th palette. This palette is going to be the 10th one, or, you know, again, I'm not ranking them from order, but number 10 that I'm going to make sure I mention. This palette is so fun. DeDe Signature's Caramel Skewer palette. This palette creates the funnest type of very Christmassy, very winter vibes when it comes to the colors that you can get. The other day when I actually did use it, because I recorded the winter palette video last week, but anyway, I went ahead and used this and I got such a fun Christmassy type of eye look. I used this in like the inner crease and then the blue and the green on the outer corner, and then I put, oh, what was it? This shade all over the lid. So it just screamed Christmas with those colors, because this does lean very much on the red side, especially when I paired it with the blue. It was just such a beautiful, fun look. I had so much fun with it. So yeah, this is definitely a palette that definitely makes me think of Christmas specifically, but also winter, because again, it has those rich tones and it's not super crazy on the warm side. Like, I feel like it has a lot of coolness to all of the shades. Even like the yellow, I feel like has, maybe it's not coolness, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. I definitely feel like this green is cool. I don't know, something about this palette, all the looks that I got had such a richness to them that the richness and the colors just made me think of winter. They were just so beautiful, so wintry vibes. And you know, when it comes to this palette and working with it, if you've missed any of my videos where I talk about DeDe Signature, I like her palettes and I like her Skewer palettes a lot. Like, the shimmers are so special. Both of these shimmers in here, this one and this one, have a shiftiness to them. These shimmers are gorgeous to put on. They just apply so beautifully onto the eyelids. They are a dream to work with. They're so sparkly. I have her exotic Skewer palette on my eyes today, and do you guys see the sparkliness as they move around? I hope you can see it, because I can see it in person and it is beautiful. But anyway, her shimmers, I love them. And then the mattes in here, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Such a fun color straight. Like, look at how much fun, you know, mixing and matching these different shades together. I just feel like I can get very creative. So the Caramel Skewer palette most definitely makes me think of winter. So there you go. Sorry to interrupt here on a different day with a different set of makeup, different lighting and all that. I know that can be a little bit distracting, but it couldn't be helped because I totally forgot to mention the 10th palette. But with all that said, let's go ahead and get back to previous Katie and current Katie. Editing Katie can go back to editing the video, and we can close out this video and not confuse anyone anymore. Alright, so those are the top 10 palettes for winter for 2021, and I look forward next year to seeing how many of these hold true. I feel like I found a lot of really great wintry themed palettes with color stories that I absolutely love, so I feel like I'll be hanging on to them and thinking back on them often, like the LA Girl MainStage palette. Love that palette so much. But yeah, those are my picks for my top 10 winter palettes for 2021. Let me know your thoughts down below, and let me know what palette comes to mind for you when it comes to winter palettes, which is the top one in your mind and then from your collection that comes to mind, either winter or Christmas. I feel like for me, as I've already said, if it's Christmas themed, then it's winter themed already, because Christmas is in winter. But let me know your thoughts down below. I always love to hear what you guys think. And I don't think I have any lipstick on my teeth, so that is good. This is the Lethal Cosmetics black lipstick in Abyss, if you were curious. So far, I'm pretty happy with the pigmentation and the formula. It's pretty comfortable. I've only been wearing it for about half an hour, but it's pretty comfortable. So we'll see if I wear it again in any more videos coming up in December or maybe in January, because January, February is still winter. But anyway, with all that said, that is going to do it for me. Thank you guys so very much for watching. If you want to continue getting daily content from me, you guys know I'm over on Instagram. I'm LadyKatie92 over there. I share reels, up close eye pictures, flat lays, product shots, all that sort of thing. Do you guys ever get bored of hearing me say that spiel? I feel like I need to change it up because I kind of get bored saying it. But anyway, find me over on Instagram if you want to, and I will see you guys very soon in my next video. Bye.